One of America's most recognizable restaurant chains quietly closed 600 locations last year. Not 6, not 60, 600. And the company's own earnings call described it as a strategic restructuring. They are losing, badly, and they don't want you to know how badly. Right now, across America, 11 restaurant chains that defined casual dining, fast food, and family eating for decades are experiencing a collapse that is accelerating faster than their public relations teams can manage the narrative. It is a structural collapse, and it is happening right now, in real time, in communities across the country. We are going to walk through all 11. The closures, the debt, the empty dining rooms, and the decisions that set each chain on this path years before anyone was paying attention. And the final chain on this list, it is the one that will genuinely stop you in your tracks, because this brand was supposed to be immune to everything that is destroying the others. Stay with us. Number 1. Smush Red Lobster, the endless shrimp that ate the company. The story of Red Lobster's collapse is one of the most extraordinary corporate self-destructions in American restaurant history, and it began with shrimp. In 2023, Red Lobster made a decision that its own finance team reportedly flagged as catastrophically risky. They made their endless shrimp promotion a permanent menu fixture rather than a limited-time offering. What happened next should be studied in business schools for decades. Americans ate shrimp endlessly, far beyond any volume projection the company's models had prepared for. Servers reported tables of customers sitting for 3 and 4 hours, ordering round after round of shrimp at a price point that guaranteed the company lost money on every single plate after the second refill. Red Lobster lost over $11 million on the endless shrimp promotion in a single quarter. But here's the twist that the shrimp headline obscured. The endless shrimp disaster was not the cause of Red Lobster's collapse. It was the final push that sent a company already teetering on the edge of a cliff into the void below. Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy in 2024, closed hundreds of locations, emerged from bankruptcy in diminished form. The recovery, if it comes at all, will take years, and the brand that millions of Americans associate with birthday celebrations and seafood indulgence will never fully resemble what it once was. Number 2. TGI Fridays, the Friday that became every day of decline. TGI Fridays invented the American casual dining category. That sentence is not hyperbole. The original Fridays, opened on First Avenue in New York City in 1965, essentially created the template for the bar and grill casual dining experience that defined American restaurant culture for the following 5 decades. And in 2026, that originator is fighting for its survival in a way that would have been unimaginable 10 years ago. TGI Fridays filed for bankruptcy in late 2024, closing approximately 50 U.S. locations immediately and signaling a restructuring process whose outcome remained genuinely uncertain through 2025 and into 2026. The chain's problems are a textbook illustration of casual dining's structural crisis. The TGI Fridays customer of 2005, someone who chose a sit-down casual dining experience as a default option for a weeknight dinner or a weekend celebration, no longer exists in the same numbers. That customer has been replaced by a dining public with more options, higher expectations, greater price sensitivity, and a fundamentally different relationship with food service. Fast casual dining, Chipotle, Shake Shack, and their expanding cohort delivers food quality that approaches or matches casual dining at dramatically lower price points and with dramatically faster service. Delivery platforms have converted the couch into a dining venue that competes directly with every table in every casual dining room in America. TGI Fridays could not adapt fast enough. The menu grew bloated, the locations aged, the brand identity blurred, and the private equity ownership structure that had loaded the company with debt left insufficient capital available for the renovation and reinvention that survival required. The Friday that was supposed to feel like a celebration now feels like a memory. Number 3. Denny's, the diner that lost its America. Denny's is supposed to be indestructible. A 24-hour diner serving breakfast all day, coffee that never stops pouring, and a menu broad enough to satisfy anyone at any hour. The quintessential American road stop. The restaurant that exists at the intersection of every highway and every life moment that requires sustenance at an unconventional hour. and yet Denny's has closed hundreds of locations in recent years, announced plans to accelerate closures further, and reported financial results that have made analysts genuinely question the chain's long-term viability in its current form. Here's the conflict at the heart of Denny's collapse. The 24-hour diner model depends on labor economics that no longer exist in the American restaurant market. Running a full-service kitchen and dining room around the clock requires staffing at all hours at wage rates that have increased substantially across every state in which Denny's operates. The menu pricing that the Denny's customer base expects, value-oriented, accessible, the kind of pricing that made Denny's the default choice for budget-conscious families and late-night diners, cannot absorb those labor cost increases without alienating the exact customer the brand depends on. Denny's is trapped. Raise prices to cover costs and lose the value customer. Hold prices to retain the customer and bleed money on every transaction. The locations closing are disproportionately the older, lower volume units that cannot generate sufficient revenue to justify the operating cost in the current environment. What remains is a smaller, more concentrated footprint, but the underlying economics have not been resolved, only temporarily contained. The Grand Slam breakfast that defined American diner culture for a generation is getting very expensive to serve. Number 4. Applebee's, the neighborhood that lost its neighbors. Applebee's built its entire brand identity around a single word: neighborhood. The neighborhood bar and grill, the place where everybody knows your name. The casual, accessible, community-embedded dining experience that positioned Applebee's not as a restaurant chain, but as a local institution that happened to have thousands of locations. The gap between that identity and the 2026 reality is significant and growing. Applebee's parent company, Dining Brands, has presided over a sustained period of location reduction that has removed hundreds of Applebee's from the American dining landscape. The closures have been particularly concentrated in the suburban and rural markets where the brand's community positioning once resonated most strongly. The Applebee's customer, broadly defined as a middle-income household seeking an affordable, familiar sit-down dining experience, is being squeezed from both directions simultaneously. Fast casual options offering comparable food quality at lower prices apply pressure from below. Fast casual premium options offering a better experience at only slightly higher prices apply pressure from above. Applebee's occupies the middle of that sandwich, and the middle is disappearing. Menu innovation has been inconsistent. The brand's value messaging has oscillated between dollar drink promotions that drive traffic but compress margins and premium menu additions that alienate the core customer who came for predictable, affordable comfort food. The neighborhood is still there. The neighbors just stopped showing up. Number 5. IHOP, breakfast's identity crisis. IHOP made a decision in 2018 that still generates bewildered discussion in marketing circles. They temporarily rebranded as IHOP. The B stood for burgers. It was a publicity stunt. It generated enormous media attention, and it perfectly illustrated the identity confusion that has characterized IHOP's strategic direction for years. IHOP owns breakfast. The International House of Pancakes is one of the most recognized breakfast brands in the world. Its menu, its aesthetic, its customer relationship. Everything about the brand is rooted in the morning meal and the all-day breakfast experience. The decision to aggressively pursue lunch and dinner business through burger promotion was not born from strategic insight. It was born from desperation about the fundamental vulnerability of a breakfast-focused brand. Breakfast is a low-margin, high-labor, time-concentrated business. The morning rush requires full staffing for a revenue window that closes by noon. Running a full-service breakfast operation profitably requires either extraordinary volume or extraordinary pricing. And IHOP's customer base resists extraordinary pricing with remarkable consistency. Location closures have accelerated. Franchise operator distress, the financial health of the independent business owners who actually run individual IHOP locations, has become a documented concern that the corporate parent must manage carefully to prevent accelerating the closure pace. IHOP is not dying, but it is shrinking. And the path back to growth requires a strategic clarity that the IHOP moment suggested the brand does not yet possess. Number 6. Ruby Tuesday, the chain that already fell and keeps falling. Ruby Tuesday has already been through bankruptcy once, filed in 2020, emerged, attempted rebuilding, And in 2026, the chain's footprint is a fraction of what it was at its peak, a ghost of a brand that once operated over 700 locations across America and internationally. The Ruby Tuesday story is important because it illustrates what post-bankruptcy casual dining recovery actually looks like. In the current environment, it does not look like renewal. It does not look like reinvention. It looks like slow, managed contraction toward a sustainable minimum, if that minimum can be found before the capital runs out. The brand's salad bar, once a genuine differentiator and a source of customer loyalty, could not survive the operational economics of the post-pandemic restaurant environment. Labor requirements, food waste management, health and safety protocols. The salad bar that built Ruby Tuesday's reputation became an operational burden that the restructured company could not sustain. What remains is a smaller chain carrying a diminished brand identity, a customer base that is contracted with the location count, and a competitive environment that has not become more forgiving since the bankruptcy that was supposed to reset the equation. Ruby Tuesday is a cautionary tale about the limits of financial restructuring when the underlying business model has been structurally disrupted. Bankruptcy can eliminate debt. It cannot eliminate competition. Number 7. Boston Market, the rotisserie that stopped turning. Boston Market was built on a genuinely good idea. Home-style rotisserie chicken and comfort food sides served quickly in a clean, accessible environment at a price point between fast food and casual dining. The concept was sound. The food, at its peak, was genuinely better than what the fast food category offered. And the positioning, fast, fresh, home-style, anticipated by decades the fast casual movement that would eventually transform American dining. But execution failures, ownership changes, and operational deterioration have reduced Boston Market from a national chain of over 1,200 locations to a shadow presence struggling with franchise disputes, wage theft allegations, health code violations, and location closures that have accelerated dramatically in recent years. The ownership history of Boston Market since its acquisition from McDonald's in 2000 reads like a private equity case study in value extraction without investment. Multiple ownership changes, debt restructuring, deferred maintenance, franchise relationships that deteriorated to the point of legal conflict. By 2026, Boston Market's remaining location count represents a fraction of its former footprint. The health inspection records of remaining locations have generated media attention of exactly the kind that a food service brand cannot survive. The rotisserie chicken that built Boston Market's reputation is still a good idea. The company that was supposed to deliver it has spent 20 years failing to honor that idea with the investment and operational discipline it required. Number 8. Sparrow, the mall pizza that outlived the mall. Sparrow's survival strategy has always been location dependency, mall food courts, airport terminals, highway rest stops, captive audience environments where the alternative to Sparrow is hunger or a significantly longer walk. That strategy worked for decades. It worked because the mall was the center of American commercial life, because airport and highway food options were limited, because captive audience environments rewarded presence over quality. And then, two things happened simultaneously. The American mall began its long documented decline. Anchor store closures, reduced foot traffic, the inexorable shift of retail commerce to digital channels that emptied the corridors where Sparrow's customer base once flowed reliably, and the captive audience food environment became dramatically more competitive. Airport terminals transformed into legitimate dining destinations with local restaurant concepts, regional chains, and genuine culinary variety. Highway rest stops upgraded their food offerings. The captive audience that Sparrow depended on developed alternatives. Sparrow has already been through bankruptcy twice, 2011 and 2014. The restructurings provided temporary relief from debt obligations, without addressing the fundamental vulnerability of the location dependency model. In 2026, Sparrow exists, but the environment that made its existence viable is contracting around it on every side. Number 9. Hooters, the concept that time passed. Hooters built a brand around a concept that was controversial from its founding and has become progressively more difficult to sustain in the current cultural and economic environment. The chain's financial difficulties in 2024 and 2025 resulted in significant location closures and a restructuring process that reflected not just the economic pressures affecting all casual dining, but the specific challenge of maintaining a concept whose core identity is increasingly misaligned with contemporary dining culture. The business model faces pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. The core customer demographic that Hooters historically relied upon is aging. Younger dining consumers, the generation whose spending will define restaurant. Industry economics for the next 2 decades have demonstrated in survey after survey and in spending behavior that the Hooters concept does not resonate with their dining values and preferences. Labor challenges specific to the Hooters model, recruiting, retaining, and fairly compensating front-of-house staff in a concept built around a specific physical presentation standard, have become significantly more complex in the current employment environment, and the food itself, which was never the primary driver of Hooters' customer traffic, cannot anchor the dining experience when the surrounding concept loses its cultural currency. The restructuring of 2024 and 2025 has left a smaller chain attempting to find relevance in a market that has largely moved past the concept it was built around. Number 10. Outback Steakhouse, the Aussie theme that faded. Outback Steakhouse built a billion-dollar business on a simple formula: generous portions, accessible pricing, a vaguely Australian theme that felt fun and different in the 1990s and early 2000s. The bloomin' onion as a cultural artifact of casual dining excess. The formula worked spectacularly for years. Outback became one of the defining casual dining chains of its era. Parent company Bloomin' Brands built an entire portfolio around the concept's success. But the 2026 version of Outback Steakhouse is carrying the weight of a concept that has aged without reinventing itself and a cost structure that the current casual dining economics cannot sustain. Bloomin' Brands has announced sustained location reductions. The company's financial results have reflected the same pressures compressing every casual dining chain: labor cost inflation, food cost increases, declining traffic from a consumer base with more options, and tighter discretionary spending. Outback's specific challenge is the steakhouse positioning at casual dining prices. The cost of beef has increased substantially. The portion sizes that define the brand's value proposition are increasingly expensive to deliver at the price points the customer base accepts. The choice between shrinking portions, raising prices, or accepting margin compression is a choice between 3 forms of customer and financial pain. The Australian theme that felt distinctive in 1988 feels dated in 2026. The reinvention required to make Outback relevant to a new generation of dining consumers has not yet materialized in any form that the market has responded to. Number 11. Starbucks, the empire under siege. Starbucks is not dying the way the other chains on this list are dying. It is facing something more complex, more structural, and in some ways more alarming precisely because the conventional warning signs are not fully present. The locations are still open. The lines are still forming. The brand recognition is still essentially unmatched in the global coffee category, but the numbers behind that visible presence tell a different story. Starbucks has reported multiple consecutive quarters of declining same-store sales, the metric that measures how existing locations are performing relative to prior periods, stripped of the flattering effect of new location openings. Declining same-store sales at Starbucks is not a normal condition. For most of the chain's history, same-store sales growth was as reliable as the sunrise. The customer that built Starbucks, the daily habitual visitor who ordered a specific drink, paid a premium price for it without significant deliberation, and repeated that behavior 250 times a year, is changing their behavior. New CEO Brian Niccol, who executed a remarkable turnaround at Chipotle, arrived in 2024 with a clear-eyed diagnosis and a restructuring plan. The plan involves menu simplification, operational streamlining, improved in-store experience, and a recalibration of the pricing strategy that has alienated the habitual customer. Whether that plan succeeds is genuinely uncertain. Starbucks has the brand strength, the financial resources, and now the leadership talent to execute a recovery that none of the other chains on this list can access. But the problems are structural, and the consumer behavior changes driving them are not temporary. The empire is not falling. But for the first time in its history, it is genuinely wobbling. And in the restaurant industry, wobbling at scale is the beginning of a story that rarely ends the way the company hopes. 11 chains. 11 versions of an industry in fundamental transformation. Some of these stories end in closure. Some end in dramatically diminished survival. Some, like Starbucks, may yet end in genuine recovery. But none of them end the way the story began. The casual dining era that defined American restaurant culture from the 1970s through the 2010s is over. Not paused, not interrupted. Over. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, hit the like button right now. Subscribe so you never miss an investigation into the industries and institutions being transformed in real time. Share this with someone who needs to see it, because understanding where industries are going is how you stay ahead of where they've been. We'll see you in the next one.